dokie. What's up, meat tarts? How's my audio? OBS should be working today. It is 11 o'clock on a beautiful Thursday morning. Beautiful Thursday morning. What's happening, guys? Got a bunch of people hanging out. Loads of people in the chat. What's up, everybody? Look at all these lovely people. So, today we are here to talk about the brave philanthropists in media, banking, and government, and the UN, who are going to give us taxes on our meat in order to stop climate change due to all you useless eaters. All of us useless eaters, we're consuming too much meat, guys. We're eating too much meat. We're having too many babies. And we're breathing too much. Every time you exhale, you are toxifying this planet. So these lovely philanthropists in the media, in the UN, and in NGOs like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, former philanthropists like Maurice Strong, who we're going to talk about a little bit today, have been pushing for this extreme taxation on all life, essentially, right? We're looking at international carbon taxes are being proposed by the lovely Justin Trudeau up in Canada. Justin Trudeau, the Pope, all these fake authorities calling for taxes on meat in order to battle the nasty, nasty climate change. So we've been born into a system that's been brainwashing us since we were children, that we're bad just for being human. We're going to talk about all these things. I know many of you may have grown up just like me, believing that human beings are a scourge on this earth. That by being born, we are creating environmental devastation. And now the media is here, giving us the answer to this guilt and shame that we've been propagandized into for generations. They're going to give us the answer to how we can fix this. And that's giving up all of our rights and starving ourselves to death on a soylent diet made by big industry, Cargill, Monsanto, Tyson Foods, General Mills, pumping billions of dollars into stuff like Memphis Meats and the Beyond Burger. All right, we've got this fake grassroots uprising of people who've already been propagandized into this extreme ideology of humans bad, hashtag people bad, hashtag babies bad. Save the planet. We gotta save the planet. Captain Planet, he's a hero. Gonna take pollution and population down to zero. We think these things are just kind of the normal progression, right? Oh, it's just the natural response to this climate crisis. Well, we're going to get into some of these ideas and talk about why health experts would propose a red meat tax to recoup $172 billion in healthcare costs. This is CNBC. Researchers at Oxford University want governments around the world to introduce a tax on red and processed meats. The tax would offset healthcare costs and prevent over 200,000 deaths per year, a study says. A study says, oh my goodness, a study says that it's going to save 200,000 deaths per year. Goodness. What philanthropist? Introducing a tax on meat would also bring about environmental benefits, says the project leader. So why are we seeing... All right, this was published 21 hours ago. CNBC. We've got the BBC. Same day, publishing should there be a tax on red meat. All right, so the BBC talking about taxing red meat in the UK. CNBC talking about the same thing, citing the World Health Organization. And then look, the philanthropists at CNN also want to save the world by driving up prices on the most essential human foods, by starving us out of our food source, and by empowering lovely philanthropists like Bill Gates and Richard Branson to make billions of dollars more by further consolidating the food supply and by destroying our ability to feed ourselves. So meat's bad. Hashtag meat bad. Meat eaters bad. And that's how dumb these articles are going to be in like 10 years. The propaganda is going to be so dumbed down, they're going to be giving you 3-word articles. Hashtag beard man bad. Hashtag bald man liar. The World Health Organization 3 years ago declared red meat such as beef, lamb, and pork to be carcinogenic when eaten in processed forms. By royal decree, meat causes cancer. We've been eating meat for the entire lifespan of the human race. Suddenly, the cancer rates are out of this world, astronomically higher as we introduce massive amounts of processed, refined carbohydrates, refined grains, cereals to the diet, and remove saturated fat and replace it with polyunsaturated fat and margarine. Now the cancer rates are out of this world. With the environmental destruction that comes with big agriculture, we've seen a massive onslaught of propaganda shifting the blame to you. It's not Monsanto, Cargill's fault, right? Henry Kissinger helping to bulldoze Cargill into the front line of creating policy for the United States government, both nationally and internationally. That has nothing to do with this. It's your fault because you were born. And you were raised in the public schools, so therefore you've been brainwashed into this religion of earth worship in the cities full of people who've never even touched an animal, who've never even been in nature, who've never been involved in the production of any of their own food. It's very, very easy to manipulate and brainwash people into this ideology of human bad, too many people, overpopulation. And we've got CNN, BBC, and CNBC all the same day promoting taxes on meat. It's a term of researchers led by Marco Springman from the Newfield Department of Population Health. The Department of Population Eradication at Oxford University. The least intrusive form of regulation is a tax to raise prices and reduce consumption. Because of health. They want you to be healthy. They want us to be healthy, guys. In the U.S., numbers would be 163% and 34% respectively. Wait, all right, so researchers concluded that the UK government should introduce a tax of 79% on processed meat, such as bacon, and 14% on unprocessed meat, such as steak. 79% increase in the price of bacon, guys. This is what you get for questioning the gods. This is what you get for questioning your false idols at the WHO, the World Health Organization, at the American Heart Association. And what's the UK's Heart Association called? I forget. But look at that, the BBC leading the way. And then, like good little boys, CNBC and CNN publishing the same article. Oh, but they just want clicks, right? It's just because they're just following the trend. They want clicks. The consumer is demanding. We want taxes, so these lovely philanthropists are just giving it to us in the free market. What a joke. What a freaking joke. And all right, so in the U.S., these numbers would be 163% increase on processed meat. So bacon, 163% increase on bacon price. What do you think about that, guys? Because we're not smart enough to make our own decisions on what we can eat. It's the government's responsibility to tell us what to eat and to coerce us into not eating meat. And to coerce us into giving up our rights and into paying money for just being human. They also calculated the projected impact of a so-called meat tax on death rates due to chronic disease. With reduced consumption of meat, the study, published November 6, claims there would be 220,000 fewer deaths from chronic disease per year. Wow, so the gods have declared it so, guys. Science has spoken. And of course, you'll see a bunch of little dumbass vegan hacktivists out there cheering for this. This is wonderful. This is lovely. You're telling us what we believe is true. And we believe it's true because you already brainwashed into this. Brainwashed us into this nonsense. Global savings on healthcare. Since when was healthcare cost a global issue? How many people watching this think that it's a government or an NGO's or the UN's responsibility to keep us healthy? How many people think that these organizations give a shit about keeping us healthy? This is about power. This is about control. This is about population reduction. The UK government announced a new tax on sugary drinks in 2016 in an attempt to cut consumption. And this is where a lot of these hypocrites in low carb kind of pissed me off too, because I remember when they were talking about the sugar tax, right? First of all, it's a slippery slope, and we have to realize that. When you start saying, oh, well, the government should tax sugar, they should tax sugar, then you're opening the door wide open to tax anything in that sphere. So a bunch of these dumbass low-carb people were cheering it on when it's like, yeah, we're going to tax sugar. They'll tax sugar. Great. Tell us what to do, nanny state. Coerce us with force and taxation. The World Bank's going to help us, guys. The World Bank really cares. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are proposing international carbon taxes on every single service, every good, and every food source in the world. They're taxing your breath. And this has been on the table for decades. But why has this been on the table for decades? Why are these people pushing for it? Do they care about the environment? Do they care about helping us to be healthy? Absolutely not. These organizations, the UN, these NGOs, are not there for our good. These are self-serving people trying to climb a big shitty ladder to the top of a big pile of shitty false power. And these are the people who are telling us what we should do with our lives, what we can do with our bodies, what we can put into our bodies. And they want to tax meat. The BBC talking about flexitarian diets are key to feeding people in a warming world. So you're going to see terms like this: plant-based, flexitarian, and more and more propaganda is going to keep coming out. Check this guy. Only eating one portion of red meat a week could help tackle global warming. What a hero, guys. What a hero. Health-motivated taxes on red and processed meat. A modeling study on optimal tax levels and associated health impacts. This is the sort of Orwellian speak that is on the rise here. We're seeing a huge wave of this propaganda. And why do we see the same article published CNBC, CNN, and BBC all on the same day? All the same day. Let's see what else CNN has to tell us about health. Let's see what else CNBC has to say about health. Lovely. All right. Women were waiting months for a mastectomy. The surgeon changed that. Oh, man, those poor women had to wait so long to get their tits removed unnecessarily. Measles outbreak in Israel prompts warning in New York. Selling them vaccines, guys. So, same article published several international news agencies on the same day. All about reducing meat consumption and tying this in with climate change. Now, climate change, it's such a funny term, right? It gets thrown out there all the time now. It used to be global warming, used to be the ice age is coming. And now it's climate change. So it's our responsibility, and these lovely people who are so much smarter than us know exactly how the climate is supposed to be. And they also know, because they're so enlightened, how many people they're allowed to be on this planet. So these are people who are literally trying to census the entire globe, and that believe that they have the right to tell us how many people should be born. So not only is this push for taxing, these same people are pushing for, and they have the number one publicly stated goal of depopulation. Depopulation. This is what I've called the human question. I feel like that's a much more historically resonant term to use. Because the language these people use, it's very flowery, it's very nice. But really what it comes down to is people bad, get rid of people. Taxing red meat would save many lives, research shows. The cost of bacon and sausages would double if the harm they cause to people's health was taken into account. Oh, The Guardian. So, I mean, just totally out of the blue, like 100th monkey syndrome, all these news articles just appear online. How lovely. And look, the processed meat would need to be taxed at 166% in Germany. Just like in the United States. Wow. How amazingly coincidental that we need the same level of taxes in the U.S. as they do in Germany. Who are we going to pay these taxes to, guys? Well, the International Monetary Fund, and the IMF, and the World Bank are the ones who've been proposing carbon taxes as well. International carbon taxes to lower our carbon footprint. So as we're seeing all this propaganda being pushed, anti-meat, meat is bad, we're seeing at the same time loads of people understanding the necessity of animal foods. This whole low-carb thing has been kind of a sore in the bottom of the foot of this agenda as it chugs forth. As many people are realizing that cholesterol is not bad, that it's been demonized falsely, that eating meat is not going to give us cancer or kill us. In fact, many people are discovering that eating a diet of exclusively meat is helping them to remit symptoms of autoimmune conditions that they haven't been able to touch using so many other methods. So let's look at the history of some of this language. And I want to refer everybody to an article. It's not an article, it's actually a book. It's called... what's going on here? Come on, preview. There it is. The First Global Revolution, a report by the Council of the Club of Rome. So this Club of Rome document... This was published first in 1970, or was it 1992? I think it might have been 92. Let's see. The Limits to Growth appeared in 1972. So The Limits to Growth was the Club of Rome's first public policy document, the Club of Rome being a group of highly influential elite who published The Limits to Growth, which is essentially a Malthusian doctrine saying that there's too many people, too many babies are being born, humans bad, babies bad. It was this document trying to figure out what are we going to do about all these people being born? How are we going to unite them into a single system that can be controlled and managed where all resources can be managed professionally by the professionals, by the experts. And how do we know they're experts? Well, because they tell us they are. Obviously, they're experts. The UN? Come on. So the First Global Revolution. Check out this document, guys. Very interesting one. You can find the PDF online. A report by the Council of the Club of Rome. So the whole first half of this book is the Problématique, the World Problématique, talking about the areas of concern, right? The shifting tides of power, the Industrial Revolution, the population boom, the population bomb. That was a term coined by Paul Ehrlich, who was also one of the writers of this book, Ecoscience. So Paul Ehrlich and John P. Holdren. John P. Holdren later became the White House science czar under Barack Obama. Paul Ehrlich, he was basically the Al Gore of the 70s, running around telling everybody that there's too many people, that there's going to be piles and piles of corpses, and that we are all going to die if we don't get rid of all the nasty people and depopulate the planet. Paul Ehrlich made so many pseudoscientific, absurd claims that it is nearly impossible to consider him the least bit credible. But this book, which is 1,000 pages plus, it's over 1,000 pages long, Very, very interesting book. It used to be pretty hard to find. This copy I found pretty cheap used. It was a 1970s science textbook. And it's basically about how can we control the population. And they even have a lovely quote from everybody's favorite eco-green hero, Mao. Of all things, people are the most precious. Starting out the population policies chapter with a cheeky little reference to Mao. So a lot of these people, these global magnates of business and enterprise, who talk about, it's about free market. We want free market. We want free trade. Like Rockefeller. A lot of these people actually funded the Maoist revolution. Actually funded these international organizations like the UN. And of course, Rockefeller donating the land on which the UN building stands. Rockefeller setting up the first bank in China and praising the Maoist revolution and the genocide in his 1972 article in the New York Times. It's called On a China Traveler. Interesting article. Very, very interesting article. An editorial written by David Rockefeller praising the Maoist revolution. So, the goals stated in this textbook by Paul Ehrlich and the great John P. Holdren. They also recommend forced sterilization of men and women through drugging people through the water supply in this book. They talk about forced antenatal policies. They talk about infanticide being a wonderful, wonderful policy for reducing the population, aka killing babies. And they talk about the number one goal in population policies is to reduce the rate of growth of the population, although not necessarily to zero. We don't have to stop people from breeding altogether, just most people, they said. Stabilize the size of the population. That is, achieve a zero rate of growth. That sounds awesome. It'll be like Children of Men, where everybody's sterile. Fuck yeah, that'll be so enlightening. Achieve a negative rate of growth in order to reduce the size of the population. So those are the potential goals. Either number one, reduce the rate of growth of the population, although not necessarily to zero. Number two could be stabilize the size of the population, that is, achieve a zero rate of growth. And number three could be achieve a negative rate of growth in order to reduce the size of population. Wow, that's such an enlightening scientific way of talking about killing everybody. And you could read this book. Anybody could read this book. Of course, people will say, oh, no, that's nonsense. That's just circumstantial. That doesn't mean anything. So he goes on and he talks about the importance of birth control, of infanticide, institutionalized infanticide in the 18th century. So here's just one example that they recommend. Institutionalized infanticide. It's a great idea. Kill babies. Praising Margaret Sanger. So, of course, Margaret Sanger starting Planned Parenthood, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation being heavily involved in that, targeting minority populations for extermination through killing their babies and calling it reproductive health services. Do you want reproductive health services, ma'am? Yeah, we see that bulge on your belly. Oh, that's so beautiful. We're here to offer you reproductive health services. Yes, we're Planned Parenthood. Uh-huh. Oh, no, we can't help you. No, we can't help you give birth. No, we're not a midwife association. We don't help you to actually reproduce. We're reproductive health services. Yeah, we'll kill the baby for you. We'll remove it. For sure. Yeah, you probably don't want it. It's too many anyways. Yeah, don't worry. We'll kill the baby. Yeah. Population policies in less developed nations. So definitely talking about how the most important thing is to target the less developed nations. Now, Henry Kissinger's National Security State Memorandum 200, which he wrote on behalf of Rockefellers, David Rockefeller and Nelson Rockefeller, was all about destroying the third world populations in order to keep the resources and to gain full control of the resources of these populations. So anyways, this radicalized, I'm trying to find the page where he talks about forced, some of the best stuff is about forced drugging of the population. Population control, direct measures. Before any really effective population control can be established, the political leaders, economists, national planners, and others Who determines such policies must be convinced of its necessity. Well, that's already been done. You've got a whole brigade of retarded millennials from my generation who've been brainwashed into thinking that people are bad. A bunch of kids who do nothing but play video games all day, who don't produce any of their own food or don't produce anything at all. Consumerist culture, consuming identity, buying a new identity every few months. We've got my entire retarded generation totally brainwashed into this. Many of us are starting to see what's really going on. But for the most part, my generation has been fully indoctrinated in this in the public school system and in the media. We grew up watching Captain Planet on TV, bringing pollution down to zero. In many countries, such measures may never be considered until massive famines, political unrest, and ecological disasters make their initiation imperative. Nice little tongue-in-cheek suggestion there, huh? Cause famine, political unrest, and disasters. Because that's how you get people to accept new ideas. You traumatize their worldview. You shatter their psyche, and you implant new ideas on what it is to be alive nowadays. So it talks about the resistance of the populace at large. People should long ago have begun exploring, developing, and discussing all possible means of population control. But they did not, and the time has nearly run out. Remember, this is 1979, I think this was published. Maybe even earlier. I think it was 79. So we should have already started decreasing the population, but we didn't. Now look at us, and this is 40 years ago, and we're still fine. There's still an overabundance of food in the world, but these Malthusians are still trying to tell you there's limited resources, limited resources. Sit down and shut up. But they didn't, and the time has nearly run out. Policies that may seem totally unacceptable today to a majority of people at large or to their national leaders may be seen as very much the lesser of evils only a few years from now. How interesting. 65 to 75 witnessed a virtual revolution in curbing population growth among less developing country leaders, if not necessarily among their people. Even family planning, easily justified on health and welfare grounds alone and economically feasible for even the most poorer countries, was widely considered totally unacceptable as a government policy as recently as 1960. Family planning. What is family planning? Well, killing more babies, of course. Come on, guys. Among objections to population control measure were cited by demographer Bernard Berelson in 1969, where the need for improved contraceptive technology, lack of funds and trained personnel to carry out all proposed programs, doubt of effectiveness of some measures, leading to failure to implement them, and moral objections to some proposals such as abortion, sterilization, various social measures, and especially to any kind of compulsion. Most objections to population control, however, can be overcome or are likely to disappear with time and changing conditions. By conditioning the people, right? Just condition the plebs. Contraceptive technology has been improved in recent years. So then it goes on to talk about socio-economic measures. Socio-economic measures. Keep it clean in the chat, guys. No violent stuff. Nothing like that. Sometimes people come in here and they say some crazy stuff. They say some unhinged stuff in the chat. Should try to get people censored. So keep it clean in the chat. Here, I'm going to make one mod. Anybody who says anything trying to get someone in trouble, you just delete their comment and get them out of here. Okay, so let's see. Checking out the chat now. A bunch of stuff going on in the chat. If you guys want me to read your super chats, you can hit it up. Always read the super chats. All right. Well, anyways. Socio-economic measures is the next section that he goes on to talk about in this chapter, which I think is really, really interesting. Talking about actually using socio-economic measures to curb population growth. In countries that are affluent enough for the majority of citizens to pay taxes, tax laws could be adjusted to favor instead of penalize single people, working wives, and small families. Other tax measures might also include high marriage fees, taxes on luxury baby goods and toys, and removal of family allowances where they exist. Other possibilities include the limitation of maternal or educational benefits to 2 children per family. The proposals, however, have the potential disadvantage of heavily penalizing children and in the long run society as well. A somewhat different approach might be to provide incentives for late marriage and childlessness, such as paying bonuses to first-time brides who are over 25. So it just talks about socioeconomic ways that get people not to breed. Then they actually talk about how during the Great Depression and how during economic recessions, people are more stressed out and less willing to breed. What have we seen since the 1970s? As soon as I started talking about the population bomb, you had the OPEC oil crisis, which artificially raised the price of all energy and food. And now you've had my generation. You know, how many 30-year-old women from my generation that I grew up with are going to have kids? Or have already had children? Such a few. Such a bad sentence I'm trying to make. So few of the women of my generation are having children, care to have children, or care about the future of their families. They've been brainwashed to think that families are bad. They've been brainwashed to think that you should be chasing money, that it's expensive to have a baby, that it's unenlightened to have a baby. And they've been brainwashed into sterility, into a lonely life, chasing corporate greed. Women have been put in the workplace to go serve other men, as if that's women's liberation. Someone's asking for a link for these sources. I told you, this is a book called Ecoscience, Population, Resources, and Environment. You can do your own research. So, my generation is so sadly brainwashed into sterility and into thinking that it's somehow virtuous not to have kids. And here's a textbook from the 1970s talking about how this should be done. This must just be coincidental, right? Must be coincidental. Involuntary fertility control. Now, here's one of the best parts of this book. Ecoscience. They could rename this book How to Kill Everybody. How to Kill Everybody. So, the third approach to population limitation is that of involuntary fertility control. Several coercive proposals deserve discussion, mainly because some countries may ultimately have to resort to them unless current trends in birth rates are rapidly reduced by other means. Some involuntary measures could be less repressive or discriminatory. In fact, some of the socio-economic measures suggested. In the 60s, it was proposed to vasectomize all fathers of 3 or more children in India. The proposal was defeated, then not only on moral grounds, but on practical ones as well. There simply were not enough medical personnel available even to start the eligible candidates, let alone to deal with the new recruits added each day. So a vegetarian diet's not enough in India. We got to cut off all the men's balls. Let's see. India in the mid-70s not only entertained the idea of compulsory sterilization, but moved towards implementing it, perhaps fearing that famine, war, and disease might otherwise take the problem out of its hands. This decision was meted with dismay abroad, but Indira Gandhi's government felt it had little other choice. There's too little time left to experiment further with educational programs and hope that social change will generate a spontaneous fertility decline, and most of the Indian population is too poor for direct economic pressures to be effective. We got to get rid of all those poor people, but they don't care about being poor. So we'll just sterilize them, they're saying. I mean, these are the psychopathic mentality, people. This is a psychopathic control freak mentality. These people are in the name of science talking about how we need to kill everybody and sterilize people forcibly because they're so enlightened in their cities. These people in LA, New York, London, and now San Francisco, Silicon Valley, they're so enlightened that they understand that you need to kill everybody in order to save the planet. Got that Thanos mentality. The program of sterilizing women after their second or third child, despite the relatively greater difficulty of the operation than vasectomy, might be easier to implement than trying to sterilize men. How does that sound, women? This isn't just some kook that's writing this. This is John P. Holdren, former White House science czar, in his early career. This is Paul Ehrlich, the Al Gore of the 70s. This, of course, would be feasible only in countries where the majority of births are medically assisted. And now you have a push to make all births medically assisted in all countries with reproductive health services. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Unfortunately, such a program, therefore, is not practical for most less developed countries. Although in China, mothers of 3 children are commonly expected to undergo sterilization. Now, there were many campaigns that actually sterilized thousands of women in Africa without their consent. The development of a long-term sterilizing capsule that could be implanted under the skin and removed when pregnancy is desired opens additional possibilities for coercive fertility control. The capsule could be implanted at puberty and might be removable with official permission for a limited number of births. No capsule that would last long, 30 years or more, has yet been developed, but it is technically within the realm of possibility. Various approaches of administering such a system have been offered, including one by economist Kenneth Boulding. Look at that. These economists just want to save us from being born and from living. How beautiful is that? His proposal was to issue to each woman at maturity a marketable license that would entitle her to a given number of children, say 2.2. in order to have an NRR equals 1. Under such a system, the number could be 2 if a society desired to reduce the population size slowly. To maintain a steady size, some couples might be allowed to have a third child if they purchased deci-child units from the government or from other women who had decided not to have their full allotments of children or who found they had a greater need for the money. This is horrible. I want to fucking cry when I read this. This is so horrific. And I've read this like 5 times. But every time I look at it, it still shocks me. Others have elaborated on Boulding's idea, discussing possible ways of regulating the license scheme and alternative ways of allotting the third children. One such idea is that permission to have a third child might be granted to a limited number of couples by lottery. This system would allow governments to regulate more or less exactly the number of births over a given period of time. Social scientist David Here has compared the social effects of marketable license schemes with some of the more repressive economic incentives that have been proposed with the straightforward quota systems. We'll skip we'll read this whole thing because it's just fucking incredible. So these people are proposing. And these aren't just kooks. These are policymakers. John P. Holdren, Paul Ehrlich. Okay? These are freaking crazy people. These are crazy people talking about controlling your breeding. These are insane people. And then you have retards like this guy in the chat, Shiny Beast, wanting the best, most intelligent genes to breed is a good thing. And who decides what the best genes to breed are? Is it you, Shiny Beast, the NPC sitting at his computer watching someone else talk? Is it you? You think you're so fucking enlightened? You foolish little dweeb? These are the people. You got people in the chat here saying, oh, it's a good thing. This is a good thing. We should destroy all people's ability to breed and let the government decide who should breed because we're enlightened. This is the intellectual pride that you're brainwashed with that actually allows this shit to happen. These people openly call for genocide. And so many people are so dumb that they think it sounds like great ideas. Because that's what you know and that's what you've been told. And that's why we say, eat meat and make families. So all you fools, all you little fedora-wearing dorks who are in my chat saying, oh yeah, population control, that's great. The UN should tax us all when we have babies. We should have to pay the government to tell us when to have babies. All you little dummies who think that it's your right to tell other people who should breed, I volunteer you to be the first ones to accept this forced sterilization. You little dummies don't understand that you're not going to be allowed to breed. And that's the point. You think just because you take the side of these psychopaths that somehow you're going to be a part of the portion of the population considered non-useless eaters? You're still considered a useless eater, dumb shit. You little millennials marching around with cute little outfits for the vegan revolution. Vegan fashion now. We want fabulous fake fur coats and we won't wear animals because climate change is bad. We want vegan clothes and fashion now. And we demand it. Fucking idiots. So, the first global revolution, the Club of Rome, talks about the same issues as I'm discussing here in this eco-science book. I forgot I had this pulled up, the Club of Rome. But we're going to talk about that in a second. Let me just finish here talking about eco-science's recommendations. So, of course, a government might require only implantation of the contraceptive capsule, leaving its removal to the individual's discretion, but requiring reimplantation after childbirth. Required implants! That's fucking beautiful, right? Since having a child would require positive action, the removal of a capsule, many more births would be prevented than in the reverse situation. Certainly unwanted births and the problem of abortion would both be entirely avoided. The disadvantages, apart from the obvious moral objections, all those idiots who have morals, right? Fucking fools who have morals, include the questionable desirability of keeping the entire female population on a continuous steroid dosage with the contingent health risks, and the logistics of implanting capsules in 50% of the population between the ages of 15 and 50. Adding a sterilant to drinking water or staple foods is a suggestion that seems to horrify people more than most proposals for involuntary fertility control. Indeed, this would pose some very difficult political, legal, and social questions, to say nothing of the technical problems. No such sterilant exists today, nor does one appear to be under development. To be acceptable, such a substance would have to meet some rather stiff requirements. It must be uniformly effective, despite widely varying dosage received by individuals, and despite varying degrees of fertility and sensitivity among individuals. It must be free of dangerous or unpleasant side effects, and it must have no effect on members of the opposite sex, children, old people, pets, or livestock. Physiologist Kevin Mitchell of the Tufts University School of Medicine suggested that a sterilant could be developed that would have a very specific action. For example, preventing implantation of the fertilized ovum. He proposed that it would be used to reduce fertility levels by adjustable amounts, anywhere from 5 to 75%, rather than to sterilize the whole population completely. In this way, fertility could be adjusted from time to time to meet the society's changing needs, and there would be no need to provide an antidote. Contraceptives would still be needed for couples who were highly motivated to have small families. Subfertile and functionally sterile couples who strongly desired children would be medically assisted, as they are now, or encouraged to adopt. So then they go on to talk about people's attitudes and how to change people's attitude about this issue, and how people's perception is the most important thing to influence. All right. So, Alexander King Bertrand Schneider's The First Global Revolution, the Club of Rome, talking about the global revolution of eco-friendly genocide. The first few chapters are all about the problems, naming the problems. All right, so the Club of Rome wants to adopt a global approach to the vast and complex problems of a world in which interdependence among nations within a single planetary system is constantly growing, focusing on issues, policies, and options in a longer-term perspective than is possible for governments, or for the idiots who don't think long-term, who just think about, Whatever is cool and hip at the moment. I added that part. Seeking a deeper understanding of interactions of the tangible contemporary problems, political, economic, social, cultural, psychological, technological, and environmental, for which the Club of Rome adopted the term, the world problématique. So they basically adopt the term, the world problématique, for all the problems of the world, all the social, economic, political, and cultural, technological, and environmental issues of the world. They bunch into one thing, the world problématique. And then they've got a quote from Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. So Prince Philip is a rabid anti-human, constantly talking about how he wants to see depopulation. I think it was Prince Philip who was asked if you could be reincarnated, what would you be? And he said he would reincarnate. It was either Prince Philip or I think it was Philip. He said if he could be reincarnated, he could be a virus to wipe out 90% of the world's population. Because humans bad. No generation has ever liked its prophets. Oh, these people, they consider themselves prophets. No generation has ever liked its prophets. Least of all those who point out the consequences of bad judgment and lack of foresight. The Club of Rome can take pride in the fact that it has been unpopular over the last 20 years. I hope it will continue for many years to come to spell out the unpalatable facts and to unsettle the conscience of the smug and apathetic. So anybody who disagrees with Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, is just a smug and apathetic, useless eater. Prince Philip, who wants to reincarnate as a virus to kill all the people, is so enlightened, and he's down for the Club of Rome. Now, the Club of Rome was very unpopular after The Limits of Growth was published because people understood back then because they weren't as brainwashed as you are now. Like the several people that I've already banned from the chat over here crying, overpopulation, we've got to kill all the people. It's good to kill people. People bad. TV tell me so. Prince Philip agrees. They've got the wheel of humankind. The axis being services, agriculture, and industries, global economic growth, global food security, population growth, government and the capacity to govern, values, religions. These being the inputs, mass media, learning systems. So this is a pretty long book. You can get the PDF online for free and print it out. Really, everybody should read this, though. So it talks about the changes, all the changes, population growing, people bad, economic changes, oh no, all the problems. That's the first half of the book. So how do we figure out how to stop these problems? The growth of human activity, a central feature of the global situation, is the enormous increase in the totality of human activity. Too many humans being active. Too many people. We got to get rid of them. Global food security. Fake scarcity, right? Making people believe that resources are so scarce. When they live in a zoo, in a city, in an artificially curated environment where all food is brought in, where it's all processed, of course it's easy to convince these people, right? So they praise the Green Revolution, which consolidated power in the world's food supply for the oil oligarchs, for the Rockefellers, who after they took over the entire oil production of the United States, moved on to taking control of all food production. And have been very successful in this. So it talks about banking issues, developing countries. Dangerously unstable situation does not seem to elicit the close attention which it urgently deserves. The problem, if unattended, may well undermine the future prospects of the world economy for several reasons. First, a number of major U.S. banks, although they've reduced their lending to developing countries, are still carrying substantial amounts of developing country loans in relation to their capital. Some more talk about just the economic games to be played. It talks about the limits of democracy. Democracy just can't do it. It doesn't necessarily build a bridge between a colonial and neo-colonial economy or a centralized bureaucratic economy and a market economy based on competition and capable of producing growth. Winston Churchill was right when he quipped, democracy is the worst of all systems, except for the rest. With the existing structures and attitudes, we probably will not be governable in the new world. Have we gathered the necessary means and wisdoms to make decisions on the scale required for the world problematique? Essentially framing the dialogue that you're going to see in the media for the next 20 years and that you've already seen for the previous 20 years. People and nations are beginning to agree to take the next steps together. They are reaching a consensus by practical procedures rather than by the formal voting of government representatives. Many international functions, especially those requiring the most foresight and operational flexibility, can be carried out through NGOs, through non-governmental arrangements. So, already talking about the importance of the NGO, which especially in the 80s became as important as the CIA. Didn't Reagan say that the NGOs will be performing the same things, the same functions that the CIA used to perform? And that's what we see now. In many fields, government has come to realize that the effective deployment of their most cherished right, their sovereignty, requires that it be pooled with the sovereignty of other nations in order to do things that none of them can do alone. So we got to give up our national sovereignty and pool them all together for the World Bank and the IMF so we can have super sovereignty, guys, like Captain Planet. The present situation in the world, the lack of identification of the people with the processes of decision-making, is expressed in the form of indifference, skepticism, or outright rejection of governments and political parties. So the problem is people don't believe us. They're seen of having little control over the problems of our times. These attitudes are clearly indicated by a decreasing rate in participation in elections. So they're like, we're not even going to use governments. Let's use NGOs. We'll bypass the entire government system altogether. We don't require governmental change to do this. We will do this using the private sector. And then the end of the first section is one of the most important things written in a white paper, a policy paper, in a long, long time. They figured out the problem, guys. They figured it out. In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. In their totality and their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which must be confronted by everyone together. But in designating these dangers as the enemy, we fall into the trap that we have already warned readers about, namely mistaking symptoms for causes. These are just symptoms, guys. At least, see, they're the first ones to be honest with what they were doing. Most people are too stupid to even hear what's being said here. But here's what they're saying, straight from the horse's mouth. But in designating these dangers as the enemy, we fall into the trap which we've already warned readers about, namely mistaking symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention in natural processes. And it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. So the real enemy is you, is me. That really, what they're saying in this propaganda piece is that what we need to do is frame it so that not only are these little things the problems, we want to find all these things and call them symptoms and blame humanity itself. So, of course, humanity itself being the enemy, we must eradicate the enemy, they say. Isn't that crazy? And then it goes through talking about, and there's several missing pages in this PDF, talking about how are we going to do this? How are we going to bring everybody together? Adjustment to change is the fundamental challenge that underlies all the constituent elements of the problematique analyzed in the first half of this book. A challenge addressed to all the people of our planet, whether their culture, training traditions, religion, or philosophical outlook. The primary agents of the resolutique are those that will allow individuals and societies to learn how to adapt to the changes that are constantly modifying the face of the planet. Interesting, right? So now, We've got these people giving us solutions. So the problem is humanity itself. And what is the solution? Well, the solution is give up your rights. Stop eating meat. Big industry will save you by giving you processed, refined foods and herding you into coffin-sized apartments in the smart cities where everything is tracked by central AI, where all breeding is controlled, and where we have no say in what happens to our bodies and to our children, and where we are consistently programmed like in the new Blade Runner, basically. Right? When you watch the Blade Runner 2049, that's the smart city. That is the Agenda 21 smart city. And then you've got dupes within the vegan movement, because these people are really easily co-opted. These people, you tell these people you're such a great athlete. Oh yeah, you're so amazing. All right, these little rich kids who've never worked a real day in their life get propped up in this fake vegan movement. And now these fools are out there propagandizing you into this too. These fools are out there being the agents of big business, the same big business that created the industrial agriculture system, the same big money interests that created factory farming are now telling you, oh, we'll stop factory farming. We got to stop it. It's so evil. The same people who made the factory farming system are now proposing international taxes on meat, are now proposing a grain-based diet. We're going to make you meat out of soy, guys. We'll feed you soy juice. And you got Rich Roll.
What really matters is energy in, energy out. We ate those crops directly, you'd get
Here's
9
Rich Roll interviewing a robot.
If you funnel those crops through a chicken. So that means 9 times as much land, 9 times as much water, 9 times as much pesticide and herbicide, 9 times as much fossil fuel to power the combines. And then you're growing all of those crops. You're shipping those crops to a feed mill. You're operating the feed mill. You're shipping the feed to the farm. You're operating the farm. You're shipping the animals to the slaughterhouse. You're operating the slaughterhouse. Just a vastly inefficient system.
So that system, remember, that system was funded by the same corporations, the same oligarchs who are now pushing for that system to end. So they created this problem of factory farming, which is new over the last 40 years since the Green Revolution. And now the same companies, you got Tyson Foods, General Mills, Cargill, Monsanto, Bayer Pharmaceutical. You've got the same NGOs. You've got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, heavily involved in spreading the GMO revolution, the Green Revolution, now saying, oh, we're going to stop factory farming by feeding you little plebs, little useless eaters, the soy and the wheat and the corn directly as processed slop. We'll cut out the cow. You don't need the cow. And we'll grow meat in a lab for you. Because meat should be grown in a lab, just like babies. It's so unclean to have a baby on your own at home with a midwife. Right? We've got to create it in a test tube. We've got to put you in a coffin apartment. Basically living inside of a panopticon holographic prison in a smart city. And we're going to feed you this shit. And you've got Rich Roll. What a great name, Rich Roll. His last name's not really Roll, but he's promoting this amazing philanthropy. Crazy. I forget what Rich Roll's real name is, but he's like some entertainment lawyer's son in LA.
One out is vastly inefficient. And then you total all of the inefficiencies, all of the extra stages of production, all of the gas-guzzling, pollution-spewing vehicles, all of the extra factories. And what you find is that a conservative estimate is that about 13.5%, according to the United Nations, about 13.5% of all climate change is attributable to the meat industry. It's more than all transportation combined.
And that's a conservative estimate from what I understand, right? I think in Cowspiracy they said it was 15%. I think it depends on how you run the numbers. But 13.5.
It depends on how fucking retarded you are to believe this.
And it's still Trump's transportation, which is what we're all focused on.
Yeah.
So these people have the right to tell you what we could do with all of our resources, right? Because he's a little rich kid in Malibu.
I mean, and food waste, which people are focused on. I mean, food waste is 40% of everything we grow, we throw away, and obviously that's bad. But this is literally 800% food waste.
Right.
It's literally you're throwing away 8 calories for every calorie that you consume, and then you're stacking on top of this that all of these extra factories, all of these other 18-wheelers driving around, moving stuff, and I mean, it just environmentally, the United
Jump forward a little
that
bit.
is the Paris Climate Agreement.
Yes.
No goes down. No country is going to be able to keep climate change under 2 degrees Celsius by 2050, which is the Paris Climate Agreement.
So just making all these absurd statements. Oh, if you don't stop, the planet's going to rise 2 degrees. We're all going to die if you don't give us money and empower us economically. Look at this
That is the Paris Climate
snake.
Agreement.
Yes.
No country can do it unless their meat consumption goes down. And they
Slithery
recommended that we
snake
educate
man.
populations about this issue. And then World Watch did a report from a World Bank agricultural economist and an IFC international finance.
Oh, the World Bank. They're going to help us, guys. The World Bank. Don't worry. Don't worry, the World Bank. So, I mean, this talk, so this language, this is this pseudo-intellectual parroting of all this cherry-picked data to weave this picture and sound like they're so smart. That sound like these people are so smart. But what they're really saying is pretty much no different than what this kid is saying.
It's disgusting when you really think about it, that there's a lot of idiots out there who just have these unnecessary kids and just have this like stupid idea.
What's the difference?
I don't want to have a kid, but it's better than not.
So this kid says it with this childish...
Have a fucking kid, cunt. The animals are saying...
This kid says it with childish 14-year-old angst, right? Some busted up millennial, broken and traumatized by his lack of belief in anything real, lack of real family, out here talking about this. What's the difference between this and this?
Corporation agricultural economist, in which they basically disputed the UN numbers, and they said actually climate change, more than 50% of it is attributable to animal agriculture. And that's pretty easy to find. If you just Google World Watch Institute, climate change, World Bank, it'll be like the first thing to pop up. We tend to focus on the 13.5 because it's still more than transportation. It's still awful. And certainly should be motivating to people.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's shocking that we're not talking.
It's shocking that we're not talking. What do you mean it's shocking that we're not talking about this? Everyone's been talking about this. They've been shoving this down our throats for years. And it's been since the 1970s. Paul Ehrlich was saying the same thing. We're all going to be dead in 10 years. He said in 1980. Or no, was it like 75? So many times he made these false claims and sounded just as stupid as cross-eyed Rick Roll. Right? So what's the difference between these people's language and this kid's language? There's really no difference. His is more shocking and childish. But these other people, these eugenicists like Bill Gates talking about bringing population growth down to 0. What's the difference?
Are pleading for you not to have a kid. You just go, I might have one, I've got the decision, so I'll just have one. Think about the animals, you fucking selfish fucking piece of shit, self-entitled motherfucking scumbag. How about you think about the animals? Think about the innocent animals out there. Think about nature. Look at this. Fuck having kids. Fuck having disgusting, retarded, mongrel fucking kids. Look out here in nature, hey? Look out here in nature. Fuck that. I don't need any motherfucking disgusting ass retarded kids. I fucking eat kids for motherfucking dinner. Look at this shit. Why the fuck would I need kids? All I need is trees, animals, food, and water. Why would I need anything else? Fuck kids. They're disgusting inbred.
So what's the difference in the language? They're saying the same thing. It's the same message, whether it be Vegan Gains or Bill Gates. It's the same message. So this is why I call the stream Eat Meat Make Families. So we got the Eat Meat Make Family shirts, men's and women's. We got these on the website now too, guys. T-shirts and tanks and hoodies. But this is why it makes me so sad. Part of the reason why it makes me so sad that so much of my generation are not going to have children, have been brainwashed into thinking that having kids is bad, that they've been brainwashed into thinking that they're bad for just being human, it makes me really sad because people don't understand how different life is when you actually have a family. It's just so sad to know that so many people are going to reach the end of their reproductive years, not have any kids, and just be alone. I mean, if you travel around South America, you find that there are a lot of these vegetarian boomers who've set up shop in various towns all throughout Latin America and Colombia and Ecuador. In Colombia and Ecuador and in Peru. Tristan, why is your design 666 triangle? Get out of here. More of these retards. Are you freaking kidding me? That's a Triskelion. That's a Celtic symbol that's been around forever before the number 6 was the number 6 in English. You fucking dumbasses. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Get out of here. Your triangle is 666. That's a Triskelion, and it's a Celtic symbol that's been around forever. Freaking dorks. So, anyways, I can't find you to kick you out. Whatever. But it just makes me so sad because I see all these boomers, all these old boomers that are retired with no kids, who treat cats like they're children, who treat their dogs like they're kids. And these people are miserable. These retired people who have never had children are so miserable, and it just makes me really, really sad to see. I mean, the boomers were really the first generation to get hard with this. They get hit hard with this population bomb, with this people are bad, with this like crazy extremist ideology. Someone says she was joking. Yeah, she's joking, but there's just so many people that say that same thing. It just gets old. People are so dumb. I mean, anything that's the shape of a triangle. Look, I have 2 Illuminati signs on my face. Got 2 eyes. Double Illuminati. But it just really makes me sad to see this anti-natalism spreading further and further. People are afraid to have kids. People who think that it's bad to have kids. People who think it's too expensive to have kids. It's sad because people are miserable later in life. And they're miserable in their 30s. Right? Like, I can't imagine being single right now, going to bars, acting like a 14-year-old boy. It's so sad to see people in my generation, grown men like Vegan Gains, making videos screaming at Tim Sheaf. In the end of the video saying, "I hate you, Tim Sheaf. I hate you. I always hated you." As a grown man making a video at another grown man screaming, "I hate you." Screaming about stomping babies. Right? And then you've got his little spiritual brother here. Check out this one. No child policy by 2020.
Humans just a fucking joke on this planet. The biggest fucking joke of them all. So dumb, so stupid. It's unfucking believable. If you could you get any fucking dumber? Like, could you get any dumber with your stupid brain? Like, you'd understand that there's billions of animals going to slaughter every year? It's so pathetic. Yet you want to write about other issues, eh? Like, it's the most stupidest thing ever. I seen this fucking thing like a couple of days ago. It's the most dumbest thing ever. It's the most stupidest thing that I've ever seen, alright? They're going about debate about voluntary euthanasia for humans. Like debate, like, it's not a good thing to, kill, for humans to decide they want to die or not, This might be an issue there, They're talking about that, but they don't give a fuck about all the animals out there, the billions of animals. Why is that not an issue? Why the fuck isn't that talked about on TV? Hey, why the fuck isn't that talked about ever? Why isn't the fact that there's 7 billion people on the planet right now, and it's growing ever non-stop until it gets to 12 or 13 billion, hey? Why is that not being talked about? Why they keep brushing it off all the time to talk about all this other bullshit like abortion and all these stupid idiots? They're so dumb, Who gives a fuck about the kid, If it's a fucking stupid thing in the womb, just abort it, poison it, kill it, destroy it, alright? Abort the fucking thing. It's scum.
I can't listen to this anymore. So, I mean, that's what you see now. This just rampant demonic fervor to kill off people. And the rhetoric ranges from this.
It's evil. It shouldn't exist, you know? They're all just GMOs. Why the fuck are you talking about something that's in a room, like something that's not even born yet, but you don't care about the actual things that are surviving, hey?
Versus
Think
this.
about this more. Like, what are the barriers to really being able to penetrate mainstream awareness to elevate this discussion to the highest level and really, you know, I know you're doing everything you can at GFI, but what do you see as the biggest impediments or the challenges that you face in trying to get people to really understand this and make change?
All right, let's hear the answer.
There's literally billions, there's literally trillions of animals dying out there, right, in slaughterhouses and in nature right now from evil people that are being tortured by the scumbags of humanity, all right?
Just somebody should edit, like, Rich Roll interviewing EcoMal.
Well, Rich,
vegan gains.
we're not actually trying to get people to understand this and make change.
care.
Like GFI's theory of change is that we have beat our head against a wall of education for decades. We have attempted to convince people to change their diets. We've educated people about climate.
And this is where it's going. We've tried so hard and it's too late. We don't have a choice. Nobody has a choice now. We have to act now. That's where these ideologues are pushing it. And look at this soulless eyes on this guy.
Educated them about the inefficiency. I mean, Frances Moore Lepay wrote the book that turned me vegan more than 30 years ago. She wrote it almost 50 years ago now, and it makes the arguments that we're making now about the environmental impact and the inefficiency. PETA's been around since 1980, telling people about the harm to animals.
Like a
Environmental
robot.
groups have been talking about the inefficiency. Cowspiracy, What the Health, phenomenal films. And yet, in 2017, per capita meat consumption in the U.S. was the highest it's ever been in U.S. history. 2018 is going to be even higher.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And 2019, it's going to be even higher. You know why? Because people are catching on. Because people are eating meat and making families. Because people aren't buying into your anti-human agenda. Some of us don't buy into your bullshit.
I mean, GFI's
Is that
theory.
U.S. or global?
It's both. It's both. It's skyrocketing globally,
Yes.
but it's up in the U.S. Highest it's ever been. I mean, people are generally pretty shocked by that. Sometimes people even say, "Well, is that because the population's bigger?" And I have to say, per capita,
right.
2017 highest it's ever been.
It's interesting that is in tandem with the growing market of plant-based foods and plant-based meats.
It is, yeah. No, it's super interesting.
It's super interesting that we're being brainwashed by big industry and Fortune 100 companies into accepting this agenda, and that the IMF and the World Bank have been pushing this for years, and that Maurice Strong, the former UN Secretary General, was an extremist, anti-human, anti-natalist, genocidal maniac, New Age religious guru who was all about this stuff. Now, who here knows about Maurice Strong? Who here knows about Maurice Strong? Where'd it go? I had some stuff pulled up here. We're going to talk about Maurice Strong. So, Maurice, where'd it go? There it is. Where did it go? I'll just make a new one. I'll change this one. So we've got Maurice Strong. That's not Maurice Strong. That's Gelfling Ed. Effeminate, dupe, hacktivist, Gelfling Ed. Maurice Strong. This is from the UN's website. Maurice F. Strong has played a unique and critical role in globalizing the environmental movement. He was appointed to lead the Conference on Human Environment held in Stockholm, Sweden. Stockholm, Sweden in 1972. It was an historic event, marking the UN's first major conference on international environmental issues and resulted in founding of the UN Environmental Program. This is what you see. A lot of this stuff's coming from the UN Environmental Program. In June 1992, he was asked to lead another landmark meeting, the UN Conference on Environment and Development, best known as the Earth Summit, which was held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So that's where, in 1992, the Agenda 21 conference was held. And Maurice Strong is a billionaire philanthropist. I'm sure that's what it'll call him. Here's his Wikipedia. We all know Wikipedia is always true, right? Wikipedia. And I'm kidding. Wikipedia is not a legitimate source, but this is interesting nonetheless to look at Maurice Strong's little Wikipedia profile. He was Canadian oil and mineral businessman and diplomat who was the undersecretary, who served as the Undersecretary General of the United Nations. Strong had his start as an entrepreneur in the Alberta oil patch. So Maurice Strong he's basically like a second generation Rockefeller from Canada. Canadian Rockefeller is how you can kind of see him. So he grew up in Manitoba. Worked at this brokerage firm, made billions of dollars. Now, it doesn't talk about his religious affiliations here, which I think is interesting, because that's some of the most fascinating stuff. Maurice Strong was the Earth's Mr. Fix-It. That's Maurice Strong. The life of Maurice Strong. He died in, 2012? Or no, 16? 2016. Died in 2016. So really interesting character, this Maurice Strong. And when you look at what he was involved in, even more fascinating. So he was shunned from polite society and forced into a life of exile in Beijing after his decades of business intrigues, crimes against humanity, and environmental destruction unraveled. His savagery culminated with an attempt to profit off the death of starving Iraqi children. James Corbett penned this article. I'll put it up here. He called it, he says, Meet Maurice Strong, globalist, oligarch, environmentalist. So he was involved with the death and starvation of Iraqi children, which he profited off of. Former friends and business partners like Paul Martin, James Wolfenson, Kofi Annan, Conrad Black, and Al Gore all avoided calls for comments on their disgraced friends' passings. On Wednesday, hundreds will gather across from Parliament Hill for an extraordinary commemoration. The Governor General, the Prime Minister, the Minister of the Environment, the former President of the World Bank, among other dignitaries in and out of office, will pay homage to one of the great Canadians of his generation. What a great man. So you got Justin Trudeau saying Maurice Strong was a pioneer of sustainable development who left our country and the world a better place. The co-founder of the World Economic Forum at Davos, so the Davos elite, he was a great visionary, always ahead of our times in his thinking. Remember we talked about Ida Auken from the Davos group the other day. And there's a really good talk from Ida, and it's a roundtable with a group of other people talking about how we're going to take away everybody's rights to travel, to feed themselves, and we're going to depopulate the rural areas, and that's going to be the hardest part, they said, is getting rid of those dang pesky rural people who don't want to move into cities and give up all their rights. In fact, a whole gaggle of people showed up and paid tribute to him. Former World Bank President James Wolfenson. Martin Lees, the former Secretary of General of the Club of Rome, also talked about how great Strong was. So this is a good article just on the kind of the legacy of Maurice Strong. The legacy of Maurice Strong you're not going to read on his Wikipedia page. So Maurice Strong first met with a leading UN official in 1947 who arranged for him to have a temporary low-level appointment to serve as a junior secretary officer at the UN headquarters in Lake Success, New York. He soon returned to Canada and with the support of Lester B. Pearson, directed the founding of the Canadian International Development Agency in 1968. International Development, another nice Orwellian term for World Bank consolidation. Got a super chat. Why do vegans love Name the Trait so much? Says Ryan's Internet Adventure. I don't know. I haven't really seen too many of these Name the Trait things play out, but I've heard of this silliness. Name the trait. Now, name the trait. Yeah, I'm not. It seems like a ridiculous argument. Name the trait that would allow you to eat animals but not humans. Well, humans are made in the image of God. Man made in the image of God, not an animal. Now, of course, if you're a materialist, naturalist, you don't believe that. But yeah, the name the trait one's funny. So thanks for the super chat, $2. I'm sure this video will be demonetized, so at least $2 will be made. All right, so where did it go? Where did we go? Maurice Strong liked to relate the story that he had been confrontational with Rockefeller at the start. According to Strong, some of his first words to David were, "I'm deeply prejudiced against you and all your family stands for." Oddly, David doesn't remember the meeting that well, saying instead that the two had a strong working relationship. So Strong tried to pretend he wasn't down with David Rockefeller, but David Rockefeller's, "No, that's my buddy." Either way, from that moment on, Strong was a made man. And from that moment on, wherever Strong went, Rockefeller and his associates were there somewhere in the background. It was a Standard Oil veteran, Jack Gallagher, who gave Strong his big break in Alberta oil patch when he quit his UN security job to return to Canada. When Strong suddenly decided to quit his job, sell his house, and travel to Africa, he found a job with Rockefeller's Caltex in Nairobi. When he quit that job in 1954, he started his own company back in Canada and hired Bruni to manage it and appointed 2 Standard Oil of New Jersey reps to its board. By this point, he was in his late 20s and already a multimillionaire. So just working hard, late 20s, multimillionaire. Late 20s, multimillionaire. Just from hard work, man. Hard work. His quasi-business, quasi-governmental, quasi-philanthropic career reached a new level in '69. That's when Swedish ambassador to the UN called Strong up to see if he wanted to head the forthcoming UN Conference on the Human Environment to take place in 1972. He got the call out not because of his supposed love for the environment, but because even by that time he was renowned as a human Rolodex of political, business, and financial connections across the developed and developing world. Naturally, he was duly appointed a trustee of the Rockefeller Foundation, which then funded his office for the Stockholm Summit and supplied Carnegie Fellow Barbara Ward and Rockefeller ecologist René Dubos for his team. Strong commissioned them to write Only One Earth, a foundational text in the sustainable development arena that was heavily touted by globalists as a key for promoting the global management of resources. Okay, so great article here by Corbett. Shout out to the Corbett Report. He does some good work. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he says, but he does do good work. And talking about the new Global Earth Charter, which was a widely recognized global consensus statement on ethics and values for a sustainable future. In order to build a sustainable global economy, the nations of the world must renew their commitment to the United Nations, fulfill their obligations under existing international agreements, and support the implementation of Earth Charter principles. It talks about the Ark of Hope. The Earth Charter Commission member who presided over the unveiling just happened to be none other than Stephen C. Rockefeller. September 9th, 2001, the Ark of Hope was unveiled and then carried 350 miles to the United Nations in the wake of 9/11. So Strong not only was involved with all these people, he was also really into like some weird culty stuff too. If you look into the Maitreya movement, it was really fascinating. Actually, in 2009, I remember there was the Maitreya people were coming into Santa Cruz. That was pretty fascinating. Maitreya. So these people actually believe that a coming Messiah is going to save the world from all the pollution and all the nasty humans. Which there's not a single mention of Maitreya, the Maitreya movement here. But Maurice Strong and the UN were very involved in this. So anyways, guys, Maurice Strong, he's kind of the father of the modern environmental movement, the father of a lot of this genocidal rhetoric. And it just amazes me to see so many people pushing for this stuff, pushing for clean meat. And it's sad how easily duped these movements are. So it's funny. I mentioned earlier, and I want to reiterate this. People that were cheering for taxes on sugar, now the other side is going to be cheering for taxes on meat. And how can you justify, taxes on meat are bad, taxes on sugar are good? You can't throw the dog a bone and then expect it not to come back for more. So, let's see. We've got a bunch of people over here in the comments. All right, I don't see anything. You guys are bantering amongst yourselves. But yeah, guys, we've got to give up our abilities to eat meat. We've got to give up our natural right to choose what we put in our body, because meat is changing the climate. But fortunately, not eating meat is going to save the world. Options for keeping the food system within environmental limits. This is from Nature. From a bunch of folks from the UN, University of Stockholm, Sweden, World Wildlife Fund, which was started by Huxley, by Aldous Huxley's brother, Julian Huxley, who was major into the eugenics movement, started the World Wildlife Fund, and UNESCO, the UN education program. So fascinating stuff, fascinating times. A lot of this anti-natalist stuff, a lot of this anti-meat stuff, a lot of this, coercion to giving up our rights, this stuff is going to continue to be pushed on us. And we need to push back. And we need to say no. Okay, so this is part of the reason why we definitely support traditional values, families, why we're pro-natal. That's why we got the Eat Meat, Make Family shirt. The Eat Meat, Make Family stream. I mean, these are the foods that we need for fertility. These are the foods we need to maintain fertility, the foods we need to maintain health, vitality. And replacing these animal foods, the animal fat, the fat-soluble, vitamin-rich foods. Removing foods like fatty meat, fatty fish, like liver. This results in decreased fertility, decreased vitality, decreased health, mental illness, low cholesterol being associated with violent tendencies, psychotic behavior, as you see rampant on YouTube among the veganegelicals. Guys like EcoMal.
In the end, the birds are me, the reptiles are me, the mammals are me, the plants are me, everything is me, alright? In this place that I'm walking in right now, in this beautiful natural scenery, natural beautiful area of all forest and all ancient trees and all ferns and all grass, that's part of me. I'm walking on myself right now, right? I'm walking on myself, and I see all the fucking animals out here, that is me. Because you know what? In the end, at the start of all creation, I was them, alright? I've come from all these animals. All of them combined equals a creator, alright?
So there you go. So the pantheistic Charlie Manson worldview. You guys, let's hear what Charlie Manson has to say about environmentalism. Manson's great. Charlie Manson is the quintessential vegan activist, the quintessential modern sage. We saw him being praised by vegan cult, fruitarian cult, Carbon Nation, Peace Reflections, yerp. Talking about how Charlie Manson is a great prophet. I have to see if this is, I think this might be the right
Clean
clip.
up the water. I'd like to go up in the mountains and start at the top of the mountains and clean the springs up. Take all the pollution out of the water so I could drink it. Clean up all the green things and pick up all the old beer cans and clean all the way to the ocean. And then maybe we might be able to save a little air and water for our children.
I can understand that bugs communicate. I can understand that trees can hear you. I understand that there are other life forms on this planet besides myself, you know.
Our air is dying. We've got to stop the fossil fuel. If we don't stop that oil consumption, there's nothing of us left.
And I see birds and I see bees and bugs and trees, and then I get locked up. And when I get back out again, all these bugs and birds and trees are gone.
I tried to stop Nixon. and I stopped him dead in his tracks. I tried to stop the Vietnam War, and I did it. And all the things I did without breaking the law. I killed nobody. I broke no law.
You broke no law?
I broke no law. I didn't even get to put on a defense, man.
You're gonna lose all your money. Your farms ain't gonna produce. You're gonna win, helter skelter. You're gonna win your reality.
And I get out of jail and I see the deserts dying, the bees are dying, the birds can't live, the trees are dying, the smog is killing everything, and I say, wow, where's my life on this planet? Can I survive on this planet Earth?
Life is more than money and business, man. You know, it's like the world is dying and you're saying, let me show you my new dance.
What do you care about, Joe? I care about life.
I'm working on a zoo project for the ecology. I got frogs and I got hawks and turtles, lizards, and I'm working on the backside of this game.
My life is bigger than this little space. I live in the desert. I live in the mountains, man. I'm big. My mind is big.
Remember the old movie where the Piper, the Pied Piper, they said you play all the rats into the river and that they would pay you? And then the people never paid the Pied Piper, so they always kept losing their children? Well, you've lost 6 generations of children to me because you won't pay me what you owe me.
the quintessential king of the environmental movement, the vegan Ubermensch, Charles Manson. Charles Manson, essentially, just the product of modernity, right? This is like, Charles Manson is the quintessential activist to represent the modern age, right? Completely weaponized against himself, weaponized against humanity, believes that people are bad, mixes in all this new age religious stuff. I'm everything. I'm a tramp. I'm a hobo. I'm a hobo on a train car going 1,000 miles an hour towards the apocalypse, helter skelter. Just nonsensical gobbledygook. Sounds good to some dummies. Charles Manson, psychobabble. All about how we're going to save the environment, got to stop eating the animals.
The humans. Humans are pretty stupid. Humans won't survive. Humans ain't going to survive.
Because he's not human, apparently. He's so smart, he could think outside of it.
They're going to destroy every fucking thing. They're destroying everything. See, people don't realize how many... If you sit down and you started thinking people...
So it comes from a hatred of
It would take
humanity.
you 10 weeks to think up 200 million people, man. Do you know how many people that is? Now, you run out of food with 200 million people. You run out of oil with 200 million people. You run out of thought with 200 million people. You got a lot of meat there, man. That's a lot of meat to deal with, D. You know, I'm reaching for perfection, just like we all reach for perfection. But my perfection is in the air, the water, the trees, and the wildlife, and it goes beyond my physical. You see what I'm saying? In other words, they can't understand. I've already gave this physical up, man. The physical's hanging down there on the courtroom. You know, if you want to interview me, why don't you go talk to the DA? Maybe he can make up some more lies for you, some more stories for you. And here's another thing that you people talk about. All these peace movement, all these demonstrators, they'll run out and demonstrate for a nuclear power plant and go home and turn electricity on. If you want to demonstrate for a nuclear power plant, don't use electricity. Does it make sense? You know what I'm saying? They want to...
Hey, how about this? You want to demonstrate against people? How about you kill yourself? Hey, scallywag. Charlie Manson. Check out my tattoo. A swastika tattoo on my face. How about you be logically consistent with your worldview? People like vegan gangs. You think people so bad? Why don't you kill yourself? Scallywag. All these people, they're just mentally ill people talking about people are so bad. I hate people. But then they're still alive. It's like you just miserable people want to make other people more miserable. No, I mean, Charlie Manson, Charlie Manson is the symbol of the American psyche right now, right? Broken dude, grew up without a father, allegedly. His mother was a prostitute, given into various institutions as a young boy, basically raised in the prison system, experimented on with LSD and the MK Ultra experiments. This is all open. This is all like publicly available information. He was experimented on with LSD. Involved with all these degenerates in the Laurel Canyon, LA hippie scene. Maybe might have even hung out with some of Rich Roll's enlightened ilk over there in Malibu. Rich Roll is in the same area. The same type of people that were elevating Charlie Manson, like Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, hung out with him, recorded with him. All these little people helped him to develop his cult. It's kind of based on Vito Palicus. We had Tim Leary at the same time, also pumping this degeneracy into the human consciousness. Fascinating stuff. Ryan's Internet Adventure, what's up, man? For $4.99 says, sister has severe autoimmunity, start of arthritis, severe skin and digestive issues. Her diet's close to sad. Any advice for me to help her? I mean, the first thing is like step by step, man. I mean, you'd want to definitely eliminate all potential inflammatory foods, like highly reactive foods. So pulling out wheat and grains from the diet first, and filling her up on animal fats and proteins, man. Fatty fish, fatty cuts of meat, organs, marrow, grass-fed butter. And remove the abrasive foods, the wheat, the corn, the soy, the junk food, and the sugar. That's step one. Thanks for the shout out, man. So yeah, Charlie Manson.
One hand and get their faces up in the camera and like, look at me, I'm different, you know, or pay me to be somebody, you dig? And then on the other hand, they can't be somebody because they go home and turn the fucking electricity on and use the same fucking pollution. You dig what I'm saying? In other words, you can't protest cutting down trees with paperwork. You can't protest pollution riding around in automobiles. You dig? I told you 40 years ago, get back to the horse, man.
What's the best way to change things?
I get back to the horse. If you don't get back to the horse, there's going to be nothing left of you. Now, see, but what kind of brain would want to lead these fucking Rube Scoops out there? And you know,
fucking
Rube no communication with them. You dig? If you took a horse whip and beat them, they still wouldn't understand what the hell you're talking about because there's no intelligence there, man.
Red retarded motherfuckers, alright? Fuck kids, don't have kids, they're pests. And
Charlie Manson Jr. here.
Elevate this discussion.
Food that they're eating, but even watch what people are eating at Whole Foods. Like that entire sector is less than 2%. So 98% is Albertsons and Target and Whole Food, and Walmart and sort of that sort of grocery, like really big grocery.
Yeah.
But even go watch what people are eating at Whole Foods. I mean, even folks at Whole Foods, it's like the price matters. And the taste matters, and whether it's healthy for them is not that high on the scale, which is why obesity rates, these maps that are sort of color-coded for obesity, they have to keep adding new colors because people are getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter.
Far out, man. Yeah. You're right. You're right, man.
So you at GFI, you're like, all right, forget about like trying to educate people.
Educate the idiots.
That's a non-starter.
Educate
We're
those
making,
people.
For the amount of, like you use the 9 calories in, 1 calorie out. It's like, 1,000 calories into trying to get people to change their habits versus what you're getting out. So instead, you have this focus on trying to leverage basically market forces to incentivize companies to innovate and to create products that people like that address these problems.
Yeah, no, it's markets and food technology, and that will be the transformation. And we do talk about, how do we feed 9.7 billion people by 2050? We talk in sort of an Uber way about keeping antibiotics working because governments care about those things. And we want governments to be supporting research and development in plant-based meat and clean meat. That's a big part of what our policy department does. It's a big part of what our international engagement folks are doing in India and Israel and China and Singapore and Brazil, which is the areas where we're...
Ugh. Disgusting, man. Just really gross. So there it is, guys. Clean meat. Clean meat's going to save us. And taxes on meat is also so necessary. And if we could just tax people enough, they won't be able to afford meat anymore. They won't be able to eat. And we can all sing.
So keep on moving towards your perfection.
Get away. Keep on moving.
Keep on moving towards your perfection.
particularly active. And governments, these plant-based meat and clean meat, they're the solution. They are how governments meet their obligations under the Paris Climate Agreement. They're how governments provide safe food. Food safety is a big issue, especially in places like China and India. They're how water is conserved. They're how resources are conserved. So we talk about these things, but we talk about them to people who are doing policy. So fund these things, roll out the regulatory red carpet for clean meat. If you are a philanthropist or an impact investor and what you care about is climate change or sustainability or global health, these are things that you should be investing in. If you're a foundation and you do grant making in these areas, you should be doing grant making on these issues. But for individual consumers, it's really go try the Impossible Burger. It tastes incredibly awesome. And then you can also talk about the impact on the climate or the impact on sustainability or whatever. Once people are, already thinking, oh, this is like an awesome new food at this hot new restaurant. It tastes amazing. Oh, and I can also feel good about the fact that I'm doing something awesome for the planet, or it's healthier or whatever else.
Once you get them, they go, the rest of their life, They'll do that for a paycheck, You tell them, don't do that no more, and they go, There's no communication. You tell them, I told you, stop doing that. And they'll go, I said, stop it. And they'll go, and you cut someone's fucking throat and throw blood in their face, and they'll go, You see what I'm saying? In other words, it's just no intelligence, man. Not on that level. Not on that level, I don't. No. That's not mankind. That's not intelligence. It's not even beast. It don't have the intelligence of a zoo.
Charlie Manson. There's a spirit. But Charlie Manson, he is the quintessential, the spirit of this age, right? Charlie Manson, completely possessed by the spirit of this age. Fantastic. Philanthropists saving the world from us eating meat.
Yeah, absolutely.
To, really make sure that we're doing all of this right. But you made an interesting analogy in an article you wrote between this movement and kind of what went down with the in vitro fertilization movement, which I thought...
Another step. See, these people have no idea. Crying babies. Listen, see that? Hear that beautiful sound? That's a child using his lungs. Mommy doesn't think that's a beautiful sound because she was trying to put him to bed. Well, that's the sound of life. That's the sound of a baby. That's not the sound of something that's unclean, that's harming the environment. That's the sound of a beautiful child made in the image of God.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so
in vitro fertilization. How apt, right? In vitro fertilization, how this all comes full circle back to the breeding of people and the complete control of all aspects of biology. The revolution is total. Didn't Huxley say that? The revolution is total. Every aspect of life. Every aspect of life. In vitro fertilization, lab-grown meat, complete taxation on all life. This is these people's goal, and it is sick. There's people that are obviously not going to be able to completely control all breeding and go to where they want to go. But as long as people are still promoting this in the media, as long as we're accepting this as truth and we're not speaking up against this and we allow these dumbasses to browbeat us into submission, like Rich Roll, these enlightened little squinty, beady-eyed Malibu elitists, as long as we allow these people to tell us what it is to be human and what we should be eating, then they're going to keep pushing. Right? If we keep legitimizing the WHO, the American Heart Association, and these people, we will continue to be duped. So we got to speak out against this. We got to make families. We got to strengthen our connection to the truth. We have to actually seek the truth rather than avoiding it. We got to turn off the damn TV and think for ourselves and read. Right? Anybody can go out there and pick up Paul Ehrlich and John P. Holdren's book, Ecoscience. Anybody can pick up, a book like Seeds of Destruction by F. William Engdahl. It's another good one about the complete takeover of your food supply. Anybody can read books like The Next Million Years by Charles Galton Darwin, talking about these open plans to completely control all breeding. The Scientific Outlook by psychopath Bertrand Russell. And all of these other degenerates, these people openly write about exactly what they're doing to us. Yet people still deny it. They say, oh, this is just the natural market forces. When there's been people writing policy papers like the First Global Revolution or Stanford Research Institute's Changing Images of Man, talking about the gradual shifting of man's image of himself. The changing images of man. These people in Silicon Valley talking about biohacking. Right? I mean, all these linguistic decisions to call things something like, to call it clean meat, right? To call it biohacking. And this is social engineering, and language is the vehicle for social engineering. Language, imagery, and trauma. So we get traumatized into believing that we're bad for being human, which is not true. We get traumatized into this completely inverse theological framework of the world. And we get told that this is somehow progress to create this huge global slave system. It's completely inverted. But we're here, and we're going to be fruitful and multiply. We're going to have babies. We're going to eat meat. We're going to eat the fat-soluble vitamins that we need. It's another reason why moving to rural areas is going to become a bigger trend among people who actually see what's going on. You're going to see a lot more people moving to rural areas, leaving the big cities where you're being socially engineered and degraded. Or you're being cooked like a microwave. You're going to see more and more people moving to rural areas and actually taking control of their own food production. And this is very important, that we maintain animal agriculture. There are places that you can live outside of the big degenerate cities, away from your nearest Walmart, away from the mall. Well, yes, you do have to give up the convenience of living in the city if you want to live in rural areas, but there's things that you gain, like the ability to grow your own food, to have animals, to have your own water source. These are going to become the most important resources, okay? The young kids out there, start having babies. Not irresponsibly, not outside of marriage. Get married and have kids. Quit chasing poontang in the frickin' bars. Quit running game on chicks that are just looking for money and power. Find a real mate. Find a woman who wants to be a mother. And quit chasing these illusions. Right? I mean, I can't tell you how much better life is when you've got a wife and kids. And I feel so bad for so many kids in my generation who will never have children. 32-year-old grown men acting like 18-year-olds, bar hopping. Playing games like children. You've been kept in a perpetual state of adolescence and consumerism. All of us have. So connect with your local communities. You know, find real relationships. Quit trying to get laid and start trying to have a family and a meaningful life. There's way more to life than getting laid. There's way more to life than picking up chicks. When you're actually comfortable with yourself, you realize that it's actually really, really easy to trick people into liking you, to trick women into sleeping with you, and all this nonsense. And it becomes empty. Okay? It's empty. Do you want to be 40 years old, bar hopping, hitting on women? Do you want to be 40 years old trying to find the next chick to date. No. The older we get, the more narrow the pool of possible mates gets too. Someone says, PEH, we need to make a worldwide dating app for people like us. You know what? See, you know what's the cool thing is people like us. Everyone is a person like you. Most people are so thick and so propagandized and so busted and broken, but underneath that, there's still that beautiful human being who was made in the image of God, who's just a scared child that's been traumatized through media, through education, through the fake social structures that have been erected around us to control us. There's still people under there. And that's what's so cool about actually getting to know people in real meaningful relationships rather than shallow dick-wetting relationships. And that's what's so amazing. It's like you find a person that you really connect with. You find a woman who really wants to have children, who wants to have a family, and you can have a family. And you don't have to give your kids up to the state, to the television, to the toxic media culture, to the degenerate celebrities. And you can teach your kids real values. And you can raise them in an Orthodox church. You know, so fine. You know, we need real community though, people. Like we can't just continue with this fake online crap. Like you've got to, in your real life, network with people in your area. You know, forming relationships with farmers, with local food producers, people involved in animal husbandry. Forming relationships with real people in your environment, really talking to your neighbors. We need that. Right? So that's why, you know, I mean, getting involved with the local church. I'm a big proponent of Eastern Orthodoxy. As far as creating community bonds, real family values. And sometimes that might mean you have to leave your comfort zone in order to get somewhere where you can be comfortable living, where you can live a lifestyle that's enjoyable. I mean, this is part of why we live where we live. There's no perfect panacea place on earth where it's just, you know, rainbows and unicorns. But we found a place where we can live affordably and happily in a rural area where it's not completely overtaken by global corporate interests, where abortion isn't a rite of passage and this beautiful, amazing thing to be celebrated, right? We came to a country where they don't promote slaying babies. I don't agree with the Catholic Church. I'm not Catholic, but I'm in a Catholic country, and something that I've noticed is these Catholic countries, even though, you know, I mean, the papacy in Rome is rapidly trying to erode any semblance of decent doctrine left in the Catholic Church. I'm not trying to bash Catholics out there. I live in a Catholic country for a reason. There's beautiful people here. And it's, you know, it's part of why we moved here, a country where there are family values, where when you own your land, and you can do what you want with it, where you don't need a permit to have a cow on your land. Or even to build a house. That's how it used to. Well, you need permits now to build a house. It used to be you didn't even need a permit to build a house. Yin Yang says, there are a lot of white women in Ecuador. You racist. You like white women, you terrible person. There aren't. There aren't. There's some. Colombia is different. I mean, demographics are different in every country. Right? So anyways, guys, part of this, I see people in there complaining about, oh, I don't have money. I didn't have a dime when I came here. We didn't have a freaking, we saved up all the money we could for a year when we came down, and we had no idea that we would end up staying here. Those are just excuses. You know, you're going to cry, I don't have money. Money doesn't give you freedom. Money doesn't make you happy. You know what gives you freedom? The truth. The truth shall set you free, not money. Money will shackle you. Worrying about money, worrying about people's perception of you, what people think, that will fuck you up. And you will be giving away your soul bit by bit. So don't seek money. Money won't buy your way out of any of that. In fact, the most miserable people I know have the most money. The most disconnected and miserable people I know are the richest people I know. The happiest people I know are the people that work with their hands and love their family and love God, that aren't involved in all this nonsense. So sometimes we got to change our environment, not through, I'm going to change. I live in San Francisco. I'm going to wake them up. We're going to stop this. We're going to stop this nonsense. That's not going to happen. I let the dead bury the dead. I left Northern California, Silicon Valley 10 years ago for a reason. I mean, there's just the craziness going on in society right now. So we came down here to this beautiful, and I love it when these vegans come on, they try to talk shit. They're like, ugh. They'll even make racist statements. They'll come on my channel, you moved to a third world shithole country and you left your people. What do you mean my people? Who are my people in California? Who are my people in California? The millennials chasing money and fame on fake social media? The Instagram whores? Those are my people? California? The most degenerate place in the world. I grew up in Southern California and then moved to Central California, Silicon Valley area, and Santa Cruz for a while. That's not my people. It's an indoctrinated, highly, highly socially engineered people that I was a part of. I love them. But it's like, these are my people here where I live now. My kids are Ecuadorian. These people talking about like white nationalism and shit. You people are lost. All these white nationalists and shit. I mean, even I see people in there talking about, you have white kids or do white people live there? I'm not thinking about that. Yeah, I love to be around people that think like me. We're naturally tribally inclined to be around people that look like us and seek tribes that are similar to us. But like you're being divided up, and all these people, the fake, the alt-right people talking about ethno-state, ethno-nationalism and stuff. You're at a dead end too. So, all this. I mean, yeah, people are talking about the guilt that gets instilled by media. This guilt is about just being human, and media, and this oligarchic ruling class. These people know how to brainwash every subset of the population. It's not just about attacking the Western world. This is weaponized against all societies. You don't think they're trying to push abortion into Ecuador constantly? You don't think GMOs are trying to be pushed into Ecuador? You don't think the IMF and World Bank are constantly trying to push their policies on my country here in Ecuador? Yes, but they're just a little bit further behind. Because the people here still have a belief in family. It is still a Catholic country, so it does have that going for it, which is interesting. It's funny seeing the conversations that go on in the chat over there, though. And I'm not trying to be a jerk to some of you people. I know some of you people believe this or that. I'm just saying where I disagree. We need family values. We need traditional values. Traditional agriculture. Not meaning conventional agriculture, as they call it. Conventional is brand new. Traditional values. Traditional foods. The fatty meats. Animal husbandry. Growing our own food. Connecting with our heritage. And actually generating our own sustenance. Very, very important. What a funny group of people in the chat. What's up, everybody? Interesting people over there in the chat. Yeah, no, I never said it. I didn't say ethno-nationalism. I didn't call them racist. I'm not going to sit here and call anybody racist. People do throw comments up here, though. I'm talking about a lot of these vegans that come in. They'll make these racist comments about, oh, you live in this shithole third world country. It's like, dude, you don't understand. The third world is better off than the first world in so many ways. You know how free we are here? I'm going to go get on my motorcycle. Don't have to wear a helmet. Not going to get pulled over by cops. Going to go cruise through the mountains wherever I want on my dirt bike. You can build whatever motor you want, drop it in your truck. Assuming you've got numbers and papers for it. They're not slaying babies. So, interesting times we live in. Antinatalism, anti-human, don't eat meat, people bad. Hashtag bearded men bad. It's crazy. But we're not here to talk division. We're not here to bash on the vegans. We're here to point out the inanity of these movements and how freaking insane it is that people are being brainwashed into accepting these ideas and pushing for genocide. A big, beautiful snowflake. Don't you live in a majority white, closed community? No. All my neighbors are Ecuadorian. They're brown. People, creepy ass people, think they know where I live. I live where you don't live. And stay the fuck away, creepers. So anyways, tomorrow we're talking to the highly ethical and totally stable, healthy, and happy vegan Gaines. I'll be talking to that guy tomorrow. Jay Dyer and I are going to be debating vegan Gaines on his vegan religion and his vegan ethics, which essentially are an atheist worldview, vegan Gaines, and Ask Yourself. Who's like vegan Gaines? He has like this whole debate crew. They've got an entire crew. They got a whole Discord server, I think, that they use to debate people. They take it so seriously. They want to be taken seriously so badly. So it's going to be an interesting conversation with the highly credible vegan Gaines. And I'm going to stream that on my channel too. That'll be interesting. So I'm going to stream here tomorrow. I'll probably start the stream a little bit before the debate. Maybe I'll start the stream at like 12:30 Eastern tomorrow. It's going to be Jay Dyer and I versus vegan Gaines and Ask Yourself, debating vegan ethics. Where do their ethics come from? Vegan ethics, like making videos, like being a grown man and making a video saying, I hate you, Tim Sheaf. I hate you. So yeah, vegan Gaines. Can't wait. Hopefully he wears one of his wigs or plays with his dolls during our talk. Maybe he'll talk about stomping babies. But anyways, guys, I think I'm going to be moving on here. Someone's saying, do you think they're going to legalize abortion in Ecuador? Yeah, they're moving to. And the Catholic Church is becoming more and more incompetent from keeping degeneracy out of countries like this. So it's incrementalism, right? So at first it's like, well, what if the lady was raped and this or that? What if she's going to be hurt medically? They've already, you're allowed to with a doctor's permission. So, yeah. It's coming here. They'll be celebrating abortions in Ecuador and the degenerate big cities quite soon. And Maurice Strong and Bill Gates will be clapping hands in the ether with their Lord Maitreya. Maitreya. All right, guys. I'm out of here, though. I'm wrapping this up. You want this degeneracy to stop? Well, you have to stand up for what's true. And if you don't believe that there is truth, then you're going to so easily fall into whatever little nonsense made-up cult your heart desires. So get right, guys. Eat meat, make families. There is truth. There is good. And it's very, very important that we maintain our health and fertility. and that good people make babies. Not outside of marriage with deadbeat, degenerate fathers who left the house like Charlie Manson's mother, who was a prostitute. Right? To make families. That's why we got the shirts, Eat Meat, Make Families. The Eat Meat, Make Families shirts. I love these shirts. They're great. They're great conversation starters, too. So you can find more at primaledgehealth.com. We started our Keto and Carnivore Collective for November. We started that on Sunday. So signups for the December Keto and Carnivore Collective are going to be going down for the next few weeks. I think it's going to be the first or second week of December. We haven't decided yet. It's our group community coaching. We still do private consultations. But I try to direct people towards the Keto and Carnivore Collective because you get more content, more time, and really, really interesting group community coaching setting. So check out the Ketogenic Edge cookbook, my wife's book, the training manual for low-carb, ketogenic, and paleo cuisine. Really good transitionary book for people transitioning to a low-carbohydrate diet, showing you how to make organ meats even. We got a whole section on organs. Even show you how to make pemmican. Now we teach you how to make the classic keto stuff as well. We even teach you how to make sauerkraut, how to ferment certain vegetables to make them more bioavailable. This book's available only on our website. We got it available in print now. If you want to support this channel, support us, guys. We don't sit here telling you donate on Patreon. But if you want to see more of this, please support our work. We got the t-shirts on the website, linked down in the description. We got the books. We get demonetized regularly by YouTube. And who knows how much longer we'll be able to speak on YouTube. But you know what? We're not going to be silenced. I'm not going to shut my mouth. Because I love it. And I love being able to speak the truth. So everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Eat meat, make families. That's part of the solution. Part of what we can do to push this in the right direction. So get off your computer, get off your freaking cell phones, close your Facebook account, cancel your stupid Netflix account, quit watching the damn television, go talk to real people and live.